welcome back to the fire. Welcome.
What's up, Shelly?
I'm here with the fantastic Lauren Liz Photo, aka Lauren Kress, aka Purple Hair Photographer.
I listen. I'm also drinking a purple drink this morning. It's like
You are having your purple drink.
some kind of B12 something. It just so happens to be purple, but I'm not mad about it. And it's right like you. My gray hoodie could also maybe lean purple.
It could be like a Heather purple.
I do have like some
my
purple background light back there, although you can't really tell right now. So
It's all right. I got a purple tape to my upper left here.
hey, there you go. There you go. Oh my goodness. I am so happy to be here with you, Shelly.
Yeah, it's fun. I am excited to have another chance for us to chat on the pod about stuff.
Stuff and things. Well, I've been enjoying catching up with you about you just wrapped up Pitching Essentials, which was like this whole big thing that you and Rachel worked really hard on putting together, and you've done it. So I would I just think it'd be fun to do a really quick like recap of what that was and who it was for, because we're gonna get into some things that were like just some takeaways that you had after like completing this based on like some things that came up with your students.
Yeah, it was really fun. This is round 2 that Rachel from Two Love Studio and I have done. We did one last fall, and then we ran this one. We did a free workshop at the end of January for anybody that bought the templates. And then we rolled into doing the foundations class at the beginning of February, and then kicked off what we call our pro track, which is like a 3-week accountability, lesson learning, community that just literally wrapped up 2 days ago. So it is for photographers. Everybody that was in this particular cohort, I'm thinking very quickly in my head, everybody was a photographer. On the foundations call, we did have one person that was more of an art director, and that was a really fun addition. And anybody pretty much that has a portfolio could take this class or this course.
Nice.
And we really get into how do you pitch. I don't think there's ever a time since I started doing photography in 2009 where I wasn't doing some form of marketing or pitching or curating or putting myself out there in some way, shape, or form. I think people just call it by different names, and we kind of, oh, what's pitching? It's just marketing.
Yeah. Or like sales or whatever. But I do think of marketing is a different thing, because I would say that I go in and out of being good at doing any kind of consistent marketing. You and I talk about this a lot, but I would, if I were ever to say like, oh, I'm not really pitching, that means I don't have a business. Like that's so like pitching is a thing that's like no matter what. Like maybe you can get away with being like me and not really like sending out a newsletter or posting Instagram nearly enough. I should. And I'm not saying don't do that, but like at this point, 19 years in, I don't necessarily have to do those things all the time. But pitching is like whether it's responding to an email or hopping on calls, like that is just a part of running your business. Like you're always doing that. I think it's really interesting that you did that class. I feel like it's important because it is absolutely one of the things that I remember feeling really nervous about. Like it took me years to feel like I don't ever get anxious or worried about hopping on a call with a new client, existing client, whatever, because I just love to talk or whatever. And now I'm just used to it enough. But in the beginning, I remember that being like a terrifying concept of like, how do I know what to say? And what if they say this? And how do I like, what if they ask me a question I don't expect? And now I'm like, that's fine. Like, I know what my default response is if they ask me something that I just either don't want to answer or don't feel prepared to answer, then like, it's okay. Like I'm just a human. So anyway, I think that's cool to have done that class. I wish that that was around like 18 years ago.
Well, what's interesting is one of the examples that we did use in the class was the treatment I did for you, that you and I worked on to talk about, that there's these different types of pitch decks. There's kind of like the get to know me pitch deck. Then there's like the ideas pitch deck. And then there's more of a fuller scope, I'll say, ideas pitch deck. And then there's kind of the treatment deck where you're taking someone else's idea and then explaining how you're going to, bring it to life. And those 4 decks we call a capabilities deck, we call it a pitch deck, a creative deck, and treatment. So we go through all 4 of what those are. When you use them, there's kind of like, I like to call it a ladder, about like, if you're just outreaching to people and people don't know who you are, well, you have to give them a sense of who you are. And then that is that capabilities deck. And some people call it a studio guide or a get to know me guide. And that's really where the crux of everything that we teach, whether that's in the foundations or the pro track, it really stems from that piece of information. And really thinking about like, it was fascinating to see how people could take a template and really make it their own through language, font, color, obviously their imagery. But what was, even if you dig a layer deeper than that, was when you would see someone say like, well, here's my capabilities deck, and you could see you could see more of my work on my website. And when you would click to the website, I think I was telling you this beforehand, it was like, well, what is on the website? And does the website match what they put in this capabilities deck? And that could also be like, does that branding flow through? Because the person that's on that website should be the same person that's in that capabilities deck.
Yeah.
So getting folks to like understand like your brand has to flow through everything.
Right.
Not just color, font, imagery, but the language has to feel the same. Like it has to feel like a continuation. So some people's websites.
What's your vibe? And be consistent about that on all your touch points.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, if you have flourishes that you use on your, on your site or in your deck, then that should be somewhere in your website. You brought up the call piece. And I did think it was fascinating that in the pro track, there was a participant who talked about being on a call and how they just wanted to get off the call. Like someone had called them, they got a recommendation, and they couldn't wait to get off the call. And they kind of got off the call probably a little too early. Like they didn't get the information. They didn't extract enough information from that phone call to actually turn around and put together even an estimate for the client, because they didn't even know what they were shooting. They just knew it was products. They knew it was recipes, but they had no gauge of how many products. Did they want process shots? Did they just need hero shots? Was there any short form video? And so the question came of like, well, when do I ask that? And my answer was when you were on the call.
But and like I actually can really empathize with that feeling of like panic and anxiety about like it is a comfort level. And I think that sometimes it's either time or finding the right resources to help you think through and plan a call, or and a mixture of both for sure. But I remember feeling that way, a long time ago about the anxiety of being on a call, but maybe you never felt that way.
If I go back to the early years,
Yeah.
yeah, it was super nerve-wracking. We had a studio, so people actually would walk into the studio and I'd be like, oh my God, what do they want? Why are they here? What do I say to them? And then we had people who would call in, and it got to a point where I had a studio partner, and she made these little Post-it pads. They were Post-it pads. And they had like 7 things written down just to like cue you into like, ask for this, ask for this, ask for this, ask for this. And then we could just tear off that Post-it note and stick it in basically like in a file or a binder or on the clipboard for that potential client.
Yeah.
Now, this was a portrait studio. We were photographing a lot of families, kids, and high school seniors. But even when I started moving more into commercial work or trying to get more commercial work, whether that was editorial or restaurants or food, I had to learn like what questions to ask. And that was through this whole thing of like, I would be on an email thread. We would then schedule a phone call. I would listen to what they had to say. And then I'd be like, do I have enough information to actually give them numbers? Right. Or am I making and then I would be like, am I making assumptions here? Because if I'm making assumptions and I don't have the information, then I would just make my assumptions list. I'd be like, this number is based on all of these assumptions.
Yeah. And as long as you do call out those assumptions of like anybody, right? If you're on a call and you get off realizing like, oh, well, they did say products, but they didn't say how many, and I'm not really sure. Well, then if you just want to respond with an estimate, then you can say, okay, well, based on up to 10 products, this is the price. Like just making sure you call that out. It can't be like product photography, this, and then no details, because that might mean they might be like, oh, good, we have 50 products. Like and you were not thinking that at that price. So it's like, to your point, it's like as long as you are any estimate should always be super specific because scope changes all the time. And the only way to easily justify changing your price accordingly is when you can be like, hey, your price right now was because it was for this scope. Now you're saying this. So now it's going to cost this. I think that just makes your life easier as a photographer, because nobody wants to fuss about price in the first place. We just want to do what we love and have all our bills paid by magic. I would like that.
Yes. How do we make that happen?
I don't know. Please let us know.
Okay. But I do think, to that point of, when was the best time to ask? It was on the call. When is the second time to ask? Is there enough follow-up email, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to clarify, this is what I understand. Does all that sound right? So great to talk to you. Also, here's some clarifying questions.
And you and I just had this conversation, right? I had a client who I had a very quick conversation with on the phone because I was catching my plane. And I asked him to basically regurgitate all of this back to me in an email. And what he said back to me was super high level. There was not a lot of detail. There was not a shot list. There was not like, I need this many pictures of this product in the showroom and I need this. And we're looking for this many lifestyle images on these days. And even though we're shooting at these 2 locations, and I was like, are we doing 2 locations in one day? Are we doing 2 locations over 2 days? And I realized after rereading his email a few times and discussing it with you, I really needed to ask him quite a few questions.
Yeah,
I tried to boil it down. I tried to get it to 4 or 5 questions, but I was like, you know what? There's some really nuanced things here that are going to drastically affect the budget if I don't ask him.
Yeah.
So I did go up. I followed up with a very nice email, answered the questions that he had for me. And then I answered one of his questions he had for me, which is price, with my slew of questions to say, in order for me to give you X, I need Y.
Yeah.
And then I followed up with a nice mood board for him to see, here's what I'm thinking. This is how, does this fit with what you're thinking? So now I'm just waiting for the responses. But
yeah.
And I think that goes for the this whole idea of you can't rush the conversation on the phone. Even if you're feeling really nervous, you need to be able to walk away with feeling like I got they called you, especially if they called you saying, I want your services.
Right. Right. Well, I feel like there's a couple of things that can happen, right? Sometimes in your case, right, you had to get on a plane, so you did need to kind of hurry up. Sometimes that's just reality, or, people run late to a call, whatever. So, just having an idea, whether it's just from experience or I love that idea of the Post-it thing, kind of having a checklist of here's the information I know I need in order to be able to quote someone accurately. That's never a bad idea. I would still especially if I'm sort of having a crazy day or whatever, I don't sometimes I will note to myself, here's what I need to make sure I find out on this call. But sometimes you also get on a call where the person doesn't really know how to explain well what they need. And it does take some digging. I literally just had a call like that last week, where the person I got on the phone with, they like the deliverable that they wanted in the end was basically like a really snazzy social media video that would help you like get some brand awareness for their like food truck. And they were gonna have an event that they were gonna have their food truck out, and they're like, we want some like photo and video stuff because we want to make this. And I'm like, cool, okay. So like how many, you know, how many of this item are you gonna be making? Well, we're gonna be doing 3, but like we really only need to show 1. And I'm like, so in my mind, I do need to know some logistics on like what all do you want to see in this video? What are the moments that you want to see? Like I had to really pull a lot of information out of them. They did not have any, they were just like, we want this video. And I have like that, I'm having to be like, okay, well, here's all the things that we need to think through in order to get to that. Like that only happens because you thought about the moments you want to capture, the food you want to feature. Do you want to see making it? Do you want to see people enjoying it? Like, what are all these different things? Do you want to see you in the context of an event? Yes, 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 yes. He's like, "But I think we only need to do like one of the flavors." And I was like, well, not if you want to show that you have all these exciting offerings. Like, show some variety, Oh, okay. So a part of that again is time, but also I do feel like it's just never a bad idea to just note to help yourself with a guide of like, did I get all my questions answered? Because then when you're on a call and if you're starting to get anxious, you can look to your thing and be like, okay, oh, so like one thing we didn't talk about yet, how many of this thing do you need? So it's just helpful and nobody's going to think that that's odd. They're just going to think, oh, you're being thorough. Cool. Because I think
Yeah.
the most important thing on a call, sorry, is the last thing I'll say, is that it's an opportunity for them to get to know your personality. Like
Oh,
that yeah, like that to me is one of the most important things. Yes, you need the information, but at the end of the day, you can follow up if you miss something. I think the biggest thing that like a big thing to focus on is your demeanor, the energy you're bringing to it because it's a first impression opportunity. And you do want them to feel confident and like connected, right? Like, oh, they'd be fun to work with and they seem like they know what they're doing. Like that's all. That's really, if anything else, I want someone to feel that way after a call.
yeah. I mean, and you also want to feel like you're solving the problem for them, right? Like your example is like these at the end of the day, they're like, we need this video. We want this social video. And you're like, okay, well, how do I solve that for you? How do I make that happen for you? In order for me to do that for you, we have to think about what is the timing? What's the number of cuts? How many angles? And you're thinking about, well, if they only make one, I only have one opportunity to film that thing. So are we going to film, I want you to make it 3 times so I could film it wide and show the guy making it and then tight so I could see the stacking of it. And then one where it's like getting delivered to the person.
Yeah. Sometimes you have people who get on a call and they know exactly what they want and need, and you listen and you're like, they know exactly what they want and need, and I agree. Sometimes they don't, and you're like, oh, okay, well now we're fully relying on my expertise, which you should just lean into that. And sometimes it's both. Sometimes people do know what they're talking about, but I feel like don't be afraid to lend your strategic and creative brain on that and be like, oh, well, what about this? They might be like, no, that's not really, or might be like, oh, we didn't think about that. Thank you. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just think the call is such a great opportunity for all of those things.
yeah.
Ugh.
But I love that was, I don't know, that sounds like there was a lot of good conversation around that for people when you were going out of the court.
Yeah. I think when that came up in the group, I was surprised how many people resonated with like, oh, I just want to get off the call. And I think it's part of me is sad that like people don't want to talk on the phone anymore, right? That we're really conditioned to kind of hide behind our email and we're like hiding behind DMs and writing. And there is something I will say, like, look, there's something to be said about having it in writing, right? You can always reference it back. It's there, like that's what you're kind of agreeing on. And I totally get that. I mean, it's why we have contracts. It's why you list out like the scope of the assignment that you're going to do. But I do think things can happen so much faster when you're on a phone. You're not waiting for someone to get your email and process your email, then sit down to write you. When you're on the phone, it's like a 2 to 5 minute conversation can solve hours and days waiting for emails to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So
I would always rather get on the call. Now, at this point, I have realized that. But like, if I can get on a call with you, like, you're gonna understand what it would like, a lot more about me and what it would be like to work with me. So much more than just an email is gonna do. And I'm gonna get more information out of you. I'm gonna be able to suss out some things that I would really like to know. Because yeah, email, people get busy, they get too busy, it gets lost. It's really easy for people to be like,
I'll do that.
yeah, I'll do it later, or make assumptions based on what you did send them and then they're like, okay, we're just gonna go somewhere else." When, like, if you were on a call, you probably would have gotten to it. So, I'm curious, do you feel like a decent like, a majority or, what percentage of people that were in this round for Pitch Essentials were, like, relatively new, like, shooting less than 5 years? Or, like, in business less than 5 years, let's say.
Maybe a third.
Okay. I just feel like that's what was surprising to me. If you've been in business, not necessarily just shooting, but like if you've been really in this phase of pitching, marketing, running a business for sure under 5 years, maybe even up to 10, like it can still be a next
Yeah,
step.
I think there's a few people who were doing maybe more styling, or they were like adjacent to being the photographer.
Oh,
They were always in the lead position, and now they're moving into the leading position. But there definitely were people in there that were very, very seasoned who have been working in the industry for a lot of years. I mean, I'm thinking there's two people in particular that popped to my mind that I'm like, oh yeah, they've been in the business a very long time. One comes from like documentary photography, and then she moved into food. The other one was doing wedding videos, and he moved into food in 2020. Um, yeah. Anyway, and then there's probably one person who's kind of been shooting for personal, like blog, recipe development, doing more her own thing, and now is moving into shooting for clients. And I think that is a huge transition, right? So even though you've been shooting for yourself or doing recipe development and photos of your recipes, it's very different now when you're pitching. Like we had a person in the group who, man, I mean, we're talking decades of work. They've worked for decades doing a column for a very well-known weekly editorial and then a monthly magazine, contributing for years to these companies. And now they're like, well, how do I go find new work? Right? So pitching is really new to them. The shooting and the producing of the work is not new. But they've really not had to like talk to brands or talk to agencies because they've been doing the editorial stuff for so long. So it's just interesting all the different paths that people take to, getting to this thing. And I just think like, it's interesting to see like, some people are just like, oh, I have this process. This is my process. You send me in this form. But some people don't want to fill out forms. So if they don't want to fill out the form, but they're willing to get on a call, then you just fill out the form while you're on the call. You already have the form.
absolutely, because then it becomes your tool to make sure you get all the info. I think it is always smart to give like potential clients or returning clients a choice. Hey, here's this if you want to fill it out, or if it's easier, let's hop on a call. Yeah. And let them sort of self-select into whatever. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you just want it to feel easy to work. I think that's important. I want people to feel like it's easy to work with me, like from the get-go, right? Like it was, easy to talk through the game plan, easy to get from like we're just trying to get from A to B, and I want it to feel as smooth as possible. So, what else did you talk about? What else?
Yeah, I mean, I think we also talked a lot about portfolios. I touched on this at the top of this conversation, but
Yeah.
just like how does your portfolio look, and does it read? So if you send me an initial outreach and I look at your studio deck and I'm like, yeah, this is cool, then I go to your website am I going to get like a nicely presented website? Some people really needed to work on refreshing their portfolio, not just in imagery, but really in design and layout. Some were very clunky, and with like love and kindness, we were like, it's time to update this puppy. You like showing one image at a time, not going to cut it. Or it was really interesting just to see like, who was this built for? So if you click on a website and you get to something that has like a lot of verbiage at the front page, maybe one image, or maybe it has like 2 or 3 images, but there's some verbiage on the page, and you read the verbiage and you realize, okay, this website is really targeting direct to brand.
Yeah.
Right. So that could be your restaurant, that could be your CPG client, your packaging client, whatever, your product client. But if you go to a website and it's like beautiful portfolio, right? Lots of beautiful imagery right at the jump. Well, they're marketing to the brand manager or the creative agency or an art director, right? You're not marketing for that restaurant client CPG to like find you. It's a different setup.
I think that's so interesting because I hadn't thought about that in a while. Because I feel like I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like I spent a lot of time thinking a little more granularly than that of like, what work am I showing and am I not like, I don't want to show too many categories of things. Let me hone it down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so we talk a lot about that, about like, focusing your portfolio, but that is such a good point because I can in my head see the difference between like a website that's basically galleries and contact information. Like, here's different types of work, and here's my phone number, my email, and a little about me, and that's it. Versus, yeah, a little like more words. Basically, the more words, the more likely it is. Because I feel like I do want to appeal to creative agencies. I have a lot of galleries, but to your point, I have a lot of words because I do a lot of direct to brand and, working with corporate and small business, but a lot of, direct to brand stuff. So it kind of behooves me to maintain that because I've just found that it gets a good response. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think it's just something to think about. I mean, one of the portfolios in particular I looked at when I went to that website, I was like, it's clear who you're marketing to. It's clear who your customer is. You explain exactly how it works and functions and how people can get you product and how you can scale up or down. And like all the information was there, but I was like, wow, it's really interesting because my site is just galleries, right? Like if you go to my website, it is targeted to people who I want you to come and look at my imagery and be like, wow, that's really great. I want to work with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on the flip side, though, I've watched photographers. I'm thinking of a photographer in particular in my head right now. And she had the portfolio style website like I do right now, where like you would, or I should say she has that now. Let me back up. She has that portfolio style now. But even say 4 years ago, it very much was targeted to small businesses. It was got a lot of words at the front explaining what she's doing with like very fun photos and gifts. And then you would get into like, then she had her portfolio galleries, but then she also had like a services work with me page and like explained how you could work with her. And now when you go to her website, like none of that is there. It is all portfolio because she's now marketing her stuff, not direct to brand. She's marketing to the ad agencies. And I just find it really interesting if and when you're building a new portfolio or a new website, and you might go to a consultant to say, hey, help me paginate my site, you also need to think like, who are you marketing it to? Because they'll help you paginate your imagery and bring all of that together, maybe even give you some like copywriting ideas about like your about page or a case study page or something like that. But if you're really marketing direct to brand, there might be a whole piece that they're not going to even think about looking at.
Yeah. And I think even further than direct to brand, like we might think of, what we consider, would you consider even like working with restaurants as direct to brand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think another category of direct to brand is, photographers who do focus a lot of their work on like personal branding or things with entrepreneurs, right? Specifically, because that's a lot more information. Because basically you're trying to strike a balance between, like, I would say almost like 50% portfolio and 50% like sales page, right? On like process and here's how it works, because that crowd, it's like basically whoever it is you want to work with, what are they expecting when they come to your website? And what do they need? And what's going to help you what's going to help them, pick up the phone to call you or write you an email faster?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a good example of like looking at a wedding photography website, right? Wedding photographers do this really, really well, where they need to explain who they are, how they see the world. They need to show you what they do, right? Because they're going to show you like a full wedding. They're going to show you beautiful work, but they're also going to have pages that explain their process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and same with like family photographers. A lot of family photographers would do that. A lot of like, if you're in the States, like a lot of high school teen photographers. And then a lot of those photographers will tend to be the first to branch out into personal branding or these like the solo entrepreneur stuff, to like, you know, tell you about their service, tell you about how they go about it, like who their glam squad is, like why it's important to like have the glow up and all that stuff. Where as an advertising photographer, you don't see that as much. You'll see some stuff maybe on the about page or maybe a little blurb on a contact page or in a case study, but you're not going to see that on the onset on the homepage.
Right. Good stuff. Oh, websites are like a whole thing. The number of times I've redone my website is wild. I even had I remember having a portfolio review after having just redone my website.
Yeah.
And immediately after that portfolio review went and basically redid it again. Because the feedback from that portfolio review was very focused on okay, if you're trying to appeal to creative agencies, then this. And it was like, oh my gosh, okay. And I went back through and just basically ripped it apart and started over. So this kind of happens.
I mean, I do think what's interesting about that is like it does depend on who you're having those meetings with, right? And I mentioned the consultant because I've had 3 consultants that I've gone through for like website portfolio marketing help, and they've all had slightly like different things to say. But I do think like if you are someone who's like, well, I want to market to, small businesses or direct to brand or for, solo entrepreneurs, you can build a web page that just sends people there. Right. And I don't mean a separate site. I mean a page that you're like, oh, this is my homepage for whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And then you can have another homepage that is like your overview page that you use then to send to your advertising. And so people will end up on 2 different homepages, even though like your nav might all be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of ways to do it.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to do it where you don't have to be like, oh my God, I need a whole separate website.
Truly, yeah. Don't put yourself through that.
I mean, I will say there are times when you do need a separate website, but
for sure.
Yeah, in this scenario that we're talking about, though, where we're really still talking about going after businesses, right? We're a B2B photographer. Then you can pick and choose kind of like what is that homepage that you're going to send people, or what is that lead-in page you're going to send people. Right. Often they're called orphan pages if you want to look them up.
Yeah, but to be clear, do not have your wedding portfolio exist on the same website as your commercial portfolio. Those are not the same thing.
Yeah, do not.
Your wedding clients may or may not care. Your commercial clients will care. They'll be so confused, and that is an expectation. But I think it's if you're doing direct to consumer photography, right? Weddings, families, seniors, all of that can be like, those are categories that can exist within the same website, but then way separate commercial work, headshots, brand stuff. I do food and beverage, but I also do travel hospitality, and both of those things live on my website. So, because those are both like within the commercial realm. So, just want to clarify that for anybody new, that like that is, I will say, like an industry standard thing or expectation. Do not have your direct to consumer live on the same website as your direct, like, business to business.
Yes, I concur.
Thanks, Shelly.
We talked a lot about what do you do after you send that initial email, right? Like you identify the client, you find the client, which we talk about how you do that, how you find those people, where you go, where you look, and all different ways to build up your list of potential brands and clients and ad agencies and things like that. But the question kept coming back, how do you keep moving forward with staying in touch with that person if you really want to work with that brand? And so we spent a lot of time talking about what are the different ways, what are the different touch points, where can you show up, how can you stay engaged with, and staying out of your head of the conversation of like, I'm annoying this person.
Right.
So, and there's multiple ways to do that. And just yesterday, I posted on my stories that I was sending out this zine. I made this little magazine and I've got 50-ish copies left. And I now decided, you know what? I'm going to package them up and mail them out because I don't want them sitting in my office anymore. I'm actually ready to start designing the new zine. And I said to you in the pre-tape, like how just surprised I was how many people DM'd me on Instagram to say, oh my God, does that work for you? Some people, of course, asked me, where did I buy my zine or where did I have it printed? By the way, that's big shout out to XYZ. That's EXWHYZED.com. They're here in the UK. They're phenomenal. I learned about them from Ian Tuttle. Ian makes his magazine through them. I make mine through them. They're lovely folks to work with. But I digress, which is everybody wants to know like how to market, right? How to stay relevant. So if this magazine is going to be my first touch point for a lot of these new people who are on my list, right? I just worked at building up this new list of all these contacts here in London. And this is going to be the first thing that basically hits their desk is going to be this zine. So now I'm like, okay, well, what's my follow-up? So
Yeah.
this is something I've sat and thought about and have talked with my VA about. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to send this out. I'm not sending all 50 at once, by the way. I'm working through it slowly, like 6 to 8 at a time, because I am handwriting postcards and I am handwriting the envelopes. And I want to research each person again before I send it out just to make sure they're still at the place I think they're at, even though we just put this list together in fall.
Right.
But
Such an important thing to do.
yeah, so my follow-up is going to be one, I'm going to connect to them on LinkedIn, right? So there's a second connection. My third will probably be either a DM on LinkedIn. I'm going to just say it's going to be a DM on LinkedIn. So let's say the mailing happens. I'm going to then connect to them on LinkedIn. Then I'm going to send them a DM on LinkedIn. If they respond to my DM in LinkedIn, then I will probably follow up with my capabilities deck that we just talked about from Pitch Essentials, right? And then within that thing of the sending the capabilities deck, I'm just going to ask for like a 15-minute virtual coffee. Because everybody's here in London. So I could ask for an in-person, like, can I treat you to a coffee? Can I treat you to a drink? Can we have a virtual drink? Whatever that might be. As long as it's there, I want there to be some CTA of getting on the phone call or getting in person, right? And this gets back to Lauren, like you want to establish that rapport. You want them to get to know who you are. You want to show them like, I'm an amazing human being. Don't you want to work with me? Like when the right project comes up, like I want you to think of me. So right there, that's like the mailing is 1, the LinkedIn connections 2, the DM is 3, the right, the capabilities deck would be like 3 or 4, and then the follow-up for coffee, and then I might actually send them, like, another email, regular email off of LinkedIn to say, can I put you on my newsletter list?" Just to keep you abreast of, like, my work. So right there, that's 5 follow-ups. Now that's not gonna all happen like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, like, that's over a period of time, right? So and then if I'm following them on LinkedIn or connected to them on LinkedIn and see that they're doing cool stuff, then I'm going to comment on that. And then that just becomes a natural way for me to stay in the conversation, see what they're up to. And, and the idea is that I like the work that they're doing. That's the idea. Because if it's, what's the word I'm looking for? If it's reciprocal, right? They like my work. I like their work. They like, having a conversation with me. I like having a conversation with them. Then the leap from, gee, she's great to talk to and interesting to talk to and has great work, to I could invest 5-6 figures with her, could do this campaign, is an easier lift than, I don't know you at all, and I found you on Instagram and I think your work is great. Do I trust her?
Mm. Snaps on that. Yeah, it was funny. I was thinking that for as much as I was saying, I feel so comfortable on calls. You know this about me. Man, I hate a first outreach email. Like that's the thing that gives me anxiety. I get so in my head about like if I've never met this person before, right? If I'm just like, oh, I got someone's email address. I found it. I went to a creative agency website. That's a creative director. I want to email them and introduce myself. Oh, I don't want to do that. Like, I have such resistance to it because I get so in my head about like writing an email that is going to be like some kind of perfect mix of like enough information that compels them to want to get on a call with me, but not too much information that they're like overwhelmed, bored, or whatever, or like click through. And it's like, hey, the worst case scenario is like they don't respond. But for whatever reason, I just like have a really hard time with that. I'm like, what if they don't respond? Oh, okay. Send the email. This is me talking to myself. Send the email. Just do it. But I get so in my head about that. Where someone like books a call, I don't think twice about it. I mean, like I'm like, I could do those in my sleep at this point. So for me, it's just like I just want to get on a call. So I'm hoping that I met someone in person, followed up via email to schedule a call, and then I'm getting on a call, not just introducing myself for the first time via email. I don't know why that's my
But I
problem.
do think this gets back to how you like to interact in the world, which is, you would like to go to the advertising awards. You like to go to creative mornings. You like to go to the in-person meetups. And so for you, it is about showing up in the world and meeting people in the world, where a lot of people, that's not their comfort place. Their comfort place is, cold outreach through email because, they're not the in-person marketer. And I also think, this is something that came up in Pitch Essentials, which is the art of the ask for referral. And talking to, like, even if you're in the beginning of your career and you worked with someone, someone gives you that first shot or whatever to do that job, or even if you're like you, Lauren, many years into your career, it's like you think about the clients that you're like, wow, I really love working with XYZ client. Have you asked them like, hey, you know what? It's been so amazing working with you. Do you know 2 other people that you could introduce me to that could use my services?
I literally just had this happen. Actually, here we go. A little real world example because it's on my list to follow up today. So like I shoot the food and beverage for True Spark for the Braves, and so we just shot preseason menu, and the person that is over one of the subcategories of the food that we shoot, um, we were talking about, I was talking about some other look like arena or something where I wanted to be shooting their stuff. And they were like, oh, I know so and so over there. And I was like, hook a girl up. Like, come on. we're kind of like that because I've worked with them for years and like we're very comfortable now. But like, it's like, oh my gosh, I would love to work with this. Oh yeah, I'll send an email. Cool, thank you. He hasn't done that yet, so I'm gonna email him today and be like, remember when you said that? Can you please do it? So, like, truly, I that's something I want to be better at, right? Is, especially when it's someone I know, when I'm like working with, like in that circumstance, I'm working with a hospitality company. They are like, people are always moving around. So they know people all over, just saying, hey, I'm looking to do more things like this. If there's anyone you could introduce me to, or you think that, or you think that your company might need my stuff elsewhere, I'd love to work with you on that. I'd love to support you with that. So, got to make the ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
It's very true.
It's so it's like my favorite saying because it is so true. And it's just for me, I like it so much because it's just that like just try. Just try. The worst that happens is like it doesn't work. I know. I'm going to. So I'm gonna send that email. That's gonna be no problem. Because I already know them. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the biggest takeaways, right? Is around the call confidence piece, the portfolio piece, like who is your portfolio for, and making sure you set it up in that way that makes the most sense. The intro email, and then like how do you follow up with those people? Thinking through like okay, I sent that initial touch point. Well, what is my 2, 3, 4, 5 going to look like? And being okay, like to your point, if you sent that email, like we send the email, we cannot expect to get a response. Number one. Number two is track the email. If they open it, that is the win. That's the win. Right. And
Yeah.
this whole idea of like ghosting, like people are not being ghosted. People are just being overworked and therefore they can't get back in the same amount of time that they used to. So understand that
Right.
like, they don't know who you are. You're that 15th spam email, basically. Like if you are,
Right.
I relate this to like any retailer. Like if you're on a retailer's mailing list, like, Gap is a great one. Gap, Old Navy, Banana, like you're on any of those, or Ann Taylor, or like Walmart, right? If you're on any of those mailing lists, like you get 3 to 5 emails a day. Okay.
True.
So the fact that you might send one a month, like do not get all twisted up about it inside.
That is so true. I literally, because, I'll do that if I'm, like Ann Taylor, right? Like if I go to an Ann Taylor and I'm like, okay, I'm going to search my email to see if I've got a coupon or something. And when I go search, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a million emails from them so far this year. You know what I think? I think that we get so hung up on the results instead of just doing the work. I think that's kind of the trick, right? Is if you can just like with your zine, when you told me yesterday, you were like, I finally did the thing. I sent zines and we were just celebrated that, right? It wasn't like I sent these out and oh no, and like, what do you think's gonna happen? It was just like, I finally did it. I did the thing. I think that is where we have to focus our energy. Like for like just put, I would say, I mean, really for a while, but like at least 90% of your effort or your focus and your energy on just doing the work. Like do things, show up and do a thing that makes sense, right? Like sending zines makes sense, sending an outreach email makes sense, going to a networking thing. Like focus on the fact of like doing the action that you can control versus putting all your energy into worrying about the result, which you can't really control. And like, yes, at some point, track your, like, see what's working, pay attention to what seems like it's really not doing anything. But I think if we can focus more on, okay, I said, here's some things that I can do that, that could be beneficial for getting in front of people, getting work. Just do that and celebrate that. Like get it done and be like, yes, I did it. And let yourself feel good about that. And then do the next thing and then do the next thing and just focus on doing the thing. Because I think that that is where we get tripped up and stop wanting to do as much because we stay so focused on, well, is it going to work? Did it work? And I don't know. Doesn't matter. Like, let the, I don't know, leave some room for like the magic.
Yeah, I mean,
Just show up for it.
I think that also gets to the point of the compounding, right? Things compound over time. It's like interest, right? Interest compounds over time. And so if you are doing
For the magic, and you're like, yeah, but so compounding interest. Balance.
girl, you have to call me out on my finance stuff, huh?
Oh my God, I just, listen, I was more laughing at how you were like, numbers, which makes sense. And I'm like, leave room for magic, y'all.
I was just going to say, like, your outreach compounds over time.
Yeah. No,
Like,
so true.
like to your point, if you are focused on what you, I mean, not to pull from Stephen Covey, but what is in your circle, what's in your circle of influence, right?
Yeah.
And so focusing on, to your point, like focusing on what you can control really takes a lot of the pressure off. Like I mean, I think I had thought about it. I know people have said it over time, but it's literally in this moment where I'm like, right, yes, if I focus on what I have on control and if I can focus on the outreach that I can do and let go of the ROI,
Yeah.
then it's going to compound over time, right? It is like if I keep showing up and I keep saying,
You were talking about circle of influence. Because the thing that made me think of was so the book 12-Week Year, very interesting book, 90-day sprint. And the whole idea is you are like, the thing that you track is doing things that are within your ability to do. It's not like you record results as you get them, but that's not what you're worried about. You're worried about what did I say I was going to do that is within my control to show up, to do the outreach, to do the thing. Am I doing that? That's the thing you have to track and pay attention to and put your energy into. So it's like that's what that made me think of.
I think that's where we leave it. I think that's the push pin at the end of the episode. You take control of the things that you can control that are within your control. So we could just make it super control meta, right? So how many times can we say the word control in one sentence?
I don't know. Stop. It's making me uncomfortable. Take action. Do the work. I like that. Focus on what you can do, not what others might do in response.
All right, guys, we're going to put the fire out here before Lauren and I get a little too loopy. And we're going to let you go and do the work. Go do the work. Tell us how it goes. Drop us a DM. Share with us what you're actually doing. The thing that you go out and do. Let us know. We'd love to know.
That's what I would.
You got a little. Yeah, what?
I would like to know. I would like to respond to that. Like, you did this zine thing. I'm going to do this follow-up email. Like, share with us what is the thing that you are showing up and doing. I want to know that. Yeah.
All right. Tag us over on Instagram. We're creativecamp.pro or drop us a DM over there as well. And we will see you around the fire real soon. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Shelly.